Welcome, friends out there in cyberspace, to another session of 30 Minutes with a Modern Mystic. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Sascha, and welcome to you.
And today's topic is going to be integrity. Michael, would you like to start off?
Yeah, I'll start that. Integrity. I was watching a short video on the internet the other day, and there was a man obviously pretending that he was blind, and he had a stick and was tapping his way along, and he had a bag. He was holding a small bag. And when he met somebody, he fell over, obviously pretense, and the bag opened and the money fell out. It was all coins. And the person helped him to his feet, picked up the bag and gave it to him, took collected up all the coins, put them in their own pocket and moved away quickly. And then the first 5 people he met did that. Now, in between, I don't know how many, but 5 in a row took his money, helped him, took his money and ran away, some of them laughing. And then he came to a homeless man sitting in the street, and he fell over in front of him. The homeless man jumped to his feet, picked up the bag and gave it to him, picked up all the money and slipped it into his pocket, the blind man's pocket, and said, "Be careful, you'll lose your money this way." And this was a homeless person. And what it brought home to me was he might be homeless, he might be penniless, but his integrity was worth more by far than all the money and all the homes of those people who cheated. And I thought to myself, how easily today people cheat, how the morality and the integrity is just eroding from humanity.
I agree.
I know there are many exceptions to this, but I remember being told when I first went to Japan 20 years ago, if you left your suitcase on the platform, it would still be there next day. And I said, "You mean nobody would take it?" They said, "No, it would be dishonoring. Today, you wouldn't want to leave it too long." But that sense of honor has so disappeared. And I realized what a beautiful thing that was in Japan, the honor system, which we call integrity, personal integrity, and how it's being eroded. There's now, they're telling me that I think it's in America or is it over here, that you're allowed to shoplift a certain amount of goods, valued of goods, before you can even be stopped and summoned.
I think that was in California, and I read the same thing, but it might be in other places too.
But I thought to myself when I read that, my God, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So there is personal integrity, and then there's what I would call soul integrity.
Could soul integrity ever be lost?
I think if it's ever, like I said, this is a planet of young souls. You know, we're not well developed, we're young souls. And young souls have to learn integrity. And I think if the soul found integrity, no, it would never lose it, because it's a quality, it's a resonance, it's a frequency that would fill that soul, and it couldn't lose it. But personal integrity is what builds soul integrity.
Okay.
You know, if you don't have personal integrity, then you can't have it as a soul. And so the accumulation of personal integrity is something that it's almost as though humanity is going through a test. It's almost as though that blind man was testing people. And I'm sure he's probably disappointed in the results. But the homeless, the guy who got least, gave it all, made sure the guy had it all back. That was impressive to me. And yet we're inclined to look at the homeless and say, you know, it's their fault. And we're inclined to look down on them a bit. Well, I was once, I no longer do that, but I once would have done. And it's an interesting aspect of life, this integrity business.
Could we say that integrity means staying true to your principles, or in the first place, having some principles that you adhere to?
Yeah, I'm just going to say there's so. I mean, imagine every scammer,
Right.
no integrity, no principles,
Imagine
no.
most politicians.
Well, yes, so many. I mean, just about the whole lot. There are plenty of politicians I don't like who I think do have integrity. They actually believe the tripe they believe,
I agree.
but they're far outnumbered by the politicians and the world leaders who've got no integrity at all. I mean, you know, Falun Gong, over 1 million have been killed because they're Falun Gong and their organs sold to other countries for transplants. And then you look at the leaders of China, there can't be any integrity. I don't mean the Chinese people. I think many of them have incredible integrity to continue Falun Gong when you know that your life's at risk. That takes an amazing amount of moral character and integrity. And yet, you know, when you're at the most persecuted level, it finds what you're made of. It finds what you're made of. I mean, on a very, very, very minor level, just when I took a stand over not being vaccinated, you know, even some of my organizers, they just abandoned me.
Right.
And it never really bothered me, but I thought to myself, wow, you know, one of them didn't want to be connected to my name
Yeah.
for her own work. She didn't want her name connected to mine. I said, oh, what, do you know that? I said, okay, it's no longer connected. Don't you worry about that. But so we get tested, and I think right now we're in the testing fields. Probably nearly every one of us, on some level, is having our integrity tested, which then goes to the soul and begins to quantify or qualify the soul and its resonance and its frequency to determine which, I would sort of say, is it going to walk a high road to newness or continue along a lower road to more of the same? I think where everybody is going through tests.
Now, I think we both agree that over the past 20, maybe 30, maybe 40 years, for even longer, we've seen a gradual decline of integrity out there. Now, why do you think that is? And how does that go hand in hand with the spiritual or energetic or frequency uplifting of the whole humankind? Wouldn't we assume, not intuitively, but rationally, that with this upliftment, also an increase of integrity would have to take place?
You know, I could give you a funny reply. I think about 40 years ago, there was a big hole in the ground and humanity stuck its arse on it and has been sliding down deeper and deeper ever since until people walk around like they've got a stick up their bum, and you get things like woke and all this transgender stuff, and children having to choose what gender they want to be before they even know what a gender is. It's like humanity at the moment is just going through crazes.
Right.
And I think that's pressure on the soul to find where the soul is at. We're at the end of term. This is the end of term. And there's no way anybody's not going to get through this without finding where they are at on a soul level. Because personalities, they just come and go like old clothes. And identities, they just come and go.
Do you think
And yeah.
do you think that this lessening of integrity, this decrease of integrity that we've witnessed over the past couple decades, has its reasons in some carefully engineered social experiment that a very few people push us into, like Illuminati, whatever we want to call them? Or do you think that is more of an expression of this energy that pushes our soul to express in those immature ways?
I think it's the power of the chaos of love. And
Okay.
as the chaos rises, I'm very clear that it's love driven. Like
Right.
it's been in my body, that chaos. It's
Mhm.
been in this body. And it's either, I thought once or twice I was very close to the end. I thought, I don't think I'm going to make it through this. But now I'm beginning to feel there's the beginning of a new person, the beginning of a new era for me.
Just for
Um,
everyone who's not aware what Michael is talking about, he's talking about he's referring to his recent health issues.
yeah. And in a way, it hit me that way. But I think this is definitely the the power of love in a form of chaos. And so we see the world going more and more chaotic. But to me, it's as though we're now in a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
And if you have the integrity, you come out of the pressure cooker improved. And if you have no integrity, the pressure cooker crushes you down. And that doesn't mean you lose the soul, but you've got to go through another cycle to find that extra requirement. When I look at the millions of scammers, the millions, hundreds of millions, the hundreds of millions. I mean, in Australia, and you've probably got it in America, but we've got child crime. A boy of 13 is in a car and smashed into another car and killed 3 women. And he'll get a pat on the wrist because he's 13. And yet he's killed 3 people now. And I agree, there's nothing by accident, nothing by chance. And it's something between the four of them that's being played out. But nevertheless, if you look at it, the rampant youth crime that's taking place in Australia, it's like the system doesn't know how to deal with it.
Yeah.
It
I
has
think it's
no
the
idea.
same all over.
And those kids have no integrity, none whatsoever. Did their parents have it? And if the parents didn't have it, can they give it to the children?
Can
Can
you
they
give integrity to a child? That's a good question.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Probably not.
it's. Mhm.
Probably not. Probably that's you just bring it or you
Well,
don't.
I think that we do learn integrity from from parents, from our school, from our peer groups. We sort of learn what is right and what is wrong. Some obviously don't. But if you do have I should do this, I shouldn't do that, or I can do this, I can't do that, it begins to build gradually, not a prison, but it begins to build a structure to your life. And that structure has value. You notice you go out in nature, an oak tree grows into an oak tree. It's got a certain structure. It doesn't look like a carrot gone mad. And so everything, the organization of growth moves through structure. Well, as a humanity now, we're losing the structure. We're losing the structure of society. We're losing the structure of principles, the principles of life on which are the very foundation of our of building our lives. We're losing the foundation.
And interestingly, though, if I look at it from a kind of higher perspective, it seems as if this losing of structure, this losing of order, apparently forces all of us to look more at what this is really about, to look more at the light, to look more at the development is because if everything is fine, if everything is hunky-dory, if everything is perfect, you have less incentive to be looking inwardly and to grow, right? But now with the current state where everything is going crazy in so many different aspects, um, it's kind of you're being forced in a way by life to
I
do that.
mean, even the medical system's gone crazy. It's
Everything is
just
going.
a it's just a pharmaceutical sledgehammer.
Yeah.
this is why I refuse to go that direction. I said, I'm just not going there. At my age, you get in hospital, you come out in a box.
You don't come out. Yep.
And I decided, no, that's not going to happen to this one. So, yeah, it's like I said, the pressure of chaos, which is love driven, to take us down to the nitty gritty of who we are, or we don't go that way, and we just go wild and crazy, and that's okay. That doesn't make the person bad, even if they're stealing. But I think it's a determination of which timeline we each take. And in a way, it's not our choice. And yet it is a choice. The choice is in the way we live. The
Right.
choice is in our integrity, in our principles, and letting them guide us through the tough times. Like the homeless man, he had principles. He had integrity. And so what he had in the soul was very different from what he had in the body. And that might have been, being a homeless man might have been exactly what he needed to experience for the growth of his soul. When we look at success and failure, we come to two of the biggest illusions there are. And so the soul integrity doesn't look to succeed. It doesn't feel failure. Its integrity is based in its beingness, the beingness of the soul.
So would you say that you have, as a soul being, as a human soul being, developed integrity once you have come in touch, you've gotten in touch with your true self on some level of existence? Like, when does it start for an eternal being? Do
I think it
we start off with
starts.
integrity?
No, I don't think I think pretty well we have to grow everything. We have to grow and cultivate everything that we are. But we've been doing that for a very long time, over 1 million years, well over. And so we've been doing that for a long time. But but in the end, that then has to go through the fire and be tempered, like they used to make swords.
Mm-hmm.
And the good swordsmith would temper the steel over and over and over in the fire. And I think the principle applies to humanity. We have to be tempered. So we gained integrity, personal integrity and soul integrity. And then that has to be tested. Okay, how true is this? How powerful is it? Is it unbreakable? I was thinking about, what Bruno said to me about this determination. And I was thinking about it, but I thought I had no determination to succeed or fail because I realized gradually that my determination was in being, just in being, not in being anything, just in being. And it sounds an odd phrase, but integrity is just about being. It's not something you chalk up. It's just about your beingness, the tempering, because we're all beings and we're beings of consciousness. And like that oak tree behind me, that's been through storms, endless storms, to reach an age where the lower branches are touching the ground. Endless storms, and it stood through them, and it's strong. We have to go through those storms. But when we finish the storms, then I think we go through the fire, what I call the tempering. And I think humanity's in it. And there's no success and failure. It's a matter of the beingness who we are. Some move to one level, some move to another. And it's all self-determined. And it's just, I'm having to get away from this, but it saddens me when I think of all the scammers who are not bad people, but completely lack integrity and live actually as parasites on other people.
I was going to touch a similar topic that I just recently felt very sad when I watched a video of some people who were beating someone to death on the street somewhere. I don't know where it was. Some young kids, and just the amount of brute violence that was involved. And um, what made me sad above all was that I felt like these are brothers and sisters, like this is that we are one energy, yet this is such a different expression. And this, it's almost like a it's hard to explain, like um a not crossable ocean of difference, yet at the same time one energy. And it feels so lost, but yet I know deep inside that we are one. And so very, I don't know, it's very troubling sometimes. And I guess it's the same with scammers, right? Sometimes you see those expressions. At the same time, you realize you're one with them. And there's a deep sorrow or sadness involved somehow, for me at least.
I understand that sorrow. I've had it very powerfully. And somehow you're going to have to distance yourself from it. Look at it in slightly less emotionally. I mean, we are emotional beings, but that sadness can become crippling eventually.
Yeah,
And, and you have to find a way to sort of realize, okay, this is happening. But it's like the vast oceans. In one area, the sun is shining, and another area is a tremendous storm, and yet it's the same ocean. And somehow, through our lives, the child included, because a child is a soul on its endless journey, somehow we we set up a thing there. We decide I have to experience retribution, and so in another incarnation we experience retribution, and we look at that as a separate frame, and this is all wrong, and yet not a sparrow falls. Everything, but that doesn't mean to say that we've got to like it.
right.
When we see the suffering of the world. But boy, right now, with my energy way down, to focus on the suffering world completely undoes me.
Yeah,
I I just have to go outside and look at the trees, and we've had some rain, and look at the new growth and feed myself with that truth rather than the other one. The illusion, I think, has never been stronger than it is now.
I agree.
The strongest, and I somehow suspect over the years to come, the next few years, for some the illusion will grow stronger, and for others it will ebb away until one day we'll be in two different worlds.
Yeah, and it seems to be the moment that each one has to choose path to take, right? It's not so much a choice. I guess the choice is just in being.
It's just in being, yeah. It's just in living. But choosing to express integrity is a hell of a good choice.
Yeah, right.
It's
I'm wondering if I ever chose to live integrity. I just feel like I've always had integrity, and it's never been something that I had to choose very much. Um, it's interesting, like on a more practical side of things, I've always had friends or acquaintances who let's say they grew up similarly, so they had a system of values just very similar to the one that I had. But they at some point they decided to cut corners. They either wanted to be some involved in some kind of scammy business, or whatever it was. And I've always been wondering, okay, so what's the difference, between my way of feeling and looking at things and theirs? And I got to understand that for me, it has much to do with intuition and with my connection that I feel inside of me with God, with my soul. And that's where my resonance is. And so whatever I do, I feel like, now that doesn't feel right. But if I imagine, right.
exactly. Exactly. I mean, intuition is the voice of intelligence. In many ways, is the voice of God. And I'm the same. The only time I remember at school, I lied and lied and lied to the teachers, to everybody, It was my survival technique. But I remember that I didn't like it. I didn't like to be forced in the position of lying. And you know, when my father was dying, I was once again forced into 9 months of lying. And when that had finished, I really, really didn't like it. And so it made me very aware that I couldn't have integrity and even lie. It made me very aware. It brought home to me very forcibly. And ever since then, integrity has been something that I've valued. But that little film clip that I talked about really brought it home. You know, the 5 people who just took his money and laughed and ran and walked away. And the homeless man gave it back into his own pocket, said, "Be careful you don't lose it."
What would you say to those who feel like they're struggling living their own integrity, or because I know there are a lot of people out there who feel one thing and then they live another thing.
I don't know many people like that. I just know that if you feel you're struggling right now, it's okay. Because on some level, I think pretty well everybody is struggling, from the billionaires right down to the penniless. Everybody is facing their own personal demons. Everybody's facing their own personal challenges, and you can't buy your way out of that. And so it's okay to struggle. Just keep your principles and your integrity, hold on to them, honor yourself, and I think that's the best way you can go.
What always helps me is to think the worst thing that can happen is I just lose my body.
Yeah. Oh, and that's not very bad at all.
That's not very bad at all.
But not many people have that attitude.
That's right. Well, in our community, probably a lot of people do.
It's a different from the intellectual knowing of that to the complete comfort with it. You're comfortable with it, I am. But most people, like particularly the Christians, you know, oh, well, when I die, I'll join God. But let's put that date off. And as long as I possibly can. Yes, I'll come to hospital. Yes, I'll take a pig's valves in my heart. Just, I'm not quite ready to meet God yet. That's when it's all intellectual and not real at all.
Along comes a virus, and you're happy to take anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
As yeah, any port in a storm.
So, unless you have anything more to add, you could close this
No,
session.
I think that you know, if you're ever in doubt about anything, you simply say, what I'm doing, what I'm thinking, what I'm speaking, does this honor me? And if it honors you, you're in the right place. If it doesn't honor you, then back away from it and change it. It really is that simple
Yeah,
in
I
the
think
end.
that's one of the most beautiful and most simple truths that I have learned from you over the years. Um, it's such a simple question, but you immediately know the answer when you ask yourself.
Do you know immediately, and you've only got to follow that. You're in the right place at the right time, and everything's good.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Michael. And thanks everyone out there for listening. Make sure to hit the subscribe and the like button, share the video, and support us in each way you can. See you in our next session, Michael.
Okay, I want to speak to you.